So this is my name is Sunil. I work with Reporting House, and today we'll be talking about SAP PM and data analysis and reporting. So um, we'll just go through some of the data analysis issues. What are the options for SAP PM, EM, and for reporting purposes, what the limitations are, and then we'll talk about how data-driven solutions for EM business problems. And then I'll share some of the examples that we all can use. Before we go, we have a small question.
Here we
Terry,
go.
can you? Yeah.
Sure can. What version of SAP CMMS do you currently use? Is it the version known as PM or plant maintenance, or are you on a newer version that they're calling EAM? And that'll just give Sunil an opportunity to know kind of where everybody is. And we're going to give it 5 more seconds. And then we'll close the poll. And we'll report on it. And Sunil, 94% are using PM or plant maintenance.
All right.
6% on this call are using EAM.
Okay, got it. So typically, let's go through some of the business challenges that as an enterprise asset management we all face. There are different personas within organizations that are responsible or directly or indirectly related to enterprise asset management. Upper management, managers, EM administrators, SAP administrators, and then of course the staff and the shop floor people, as well as sometimes reliability analysts. And they all have different set of problems that they are trying to sort out. They want to understand the asset utilization, service availability, and reliability. Most of the upper management obviously wants to monitor total cost of asset ownership, maintenance cost, getting timely alerts on critical issues, events, and most of us, we all also have spare parts inventory that we would ideally like to optimize, and what are ways we can optimize. So everybody's looking for ways to optimizing spare parts inventory. And again, at a higher level, we are also looking to increase the overall return on the investments in the assets. People would like to make budgeting decisions based on the information that they can get from the SAP PM. And then there are some other aspects, and this is no way I'm touching all the business challenges, but a broad area. Some of the things that we observed most of the EM decision makers have a dilemma with is understanding where to focus maintenance efforts, allocating resources to high value opportunities. Where should we actually focus, and where will we get the maximum benefit out of our efforts? We are also looking for, the decision makers are also looking for if they have implemented a new process or they have changed a process in a particular way, they would like to see and monitor the improvement of, on the results out of that change. We are also looking for, there are a lot of initiatives in the organization that we all may have, like predictive maintenance, condition-based maintenance, RCM, or there could be a lot of other smaller initiatives. And we would like to see whether we are getting any results out of it and keep monitoring the progress on those efforts and see how we can all improve. Then, of course, if you have multi-site type of situation where you would like to benchmark performance, and that kind of gives us the opportunity to figure out what we can learn from each other, from different sites, etc. And overall, we all have some sort of strategies in improvement at a corporate level, and want to kind of understand how to define those strategies. And of course, once the strategy is in execution mode, you would like to monitor how it is being implemented. So generally, what we have seen, the value of enterprise asset management data analysis. So we all implemented SAP with the intent that, of course, we want to overcome the operational issues and manage all the work orders, manage all the different types of items, assets, spare parts, all of that. But really, from a broad angle, SAP is gathering so much data, and all other asset-related information as gathering data. So most of the time, SAP at the base level, whatever we get, actually gives most of the time what has really happened, what we call it as a baseline reporting. So as if you see, as the information becomes a little bit more sophisticated, raw data is converted into information and can be analyzed further, then we would know really why something happened. We'll get an insight on a particular problem, and that will help us make some informed decisions. And as you can see, the value will increase as your information sophistication becomes useful, and you will know that the idea is to know what might come, get some early alerts, get some problem areas that you can find out, and then act on it. So really, as you progress, what will happen will help you avoid some obvious issues. So Terry, I have another question.
Okay. If you are not currently on SAP EAM, when do you plan to upgrade to EAM? That in 0 to 6 months, in 6 to 12 months, in 12 to 24 months, or longer than 24 months? And that would be one if you were not sure whether you were going to upgrade as well. And we'll take about 5 more seconds. I'll share the results. We're going to close and close. Sunil, 12% on this web workshop are going to upgrade within 0 to 6 months, so it's imminent for them. 6% are from 6 to 12 months from now. 12% are 12 to 24 months from now, but by far the largest block is greater than 24 months.
Okay.
That's
right.
71%.
So really, the purpose of this is want to learn what your options are from a data analysis perspective. So we'll talk more about it as we go along. We have seen, a lot of times SAP gathers we collect a lot of data within SAP, but somehow we don't really leverage on it, and we don't really rely on it to make all our decisions. It's kind of used for more of an operational type of decision making, not necessarily tactical or strategic decision making. And by far we have seen some of these reasons why we rely less on data. A lot of times organizations have evolved over the years, so the leadership is really doesn't have that culture of making data-driven decisions. So leadership is a very, very important aspect that we see why people don't rely. Other problem we have seen is a lack of knowledge on how data can be leveraged. And we have a lot of situations where people on the shop floor, they just don't know why they are entering the data and how that data can be used in making informed decisions. So we found the lack of understanding on how that data can be used is another reason why there is a little reluctance on poor data quality, and that's another very big issue, which is the data quality inside SAP is good to the extent that they understand whatever they are going to use, but if they are not using it, sometimes the quality is not as good in terms of accuracy, consistency, completeness, integrity, and hence it's a chicken and egg story where since data is not good, we don't rely on the report and on analysis, and that whole culture never gets built. The other problem we have seen is the taxonomy and standardization doesn't exist. So if you have asset hierarchy, a good asset hierarchy can really help. So sometimes that doesn't exist, or a component hierarchy, or any of these normal standardized naming convention or grouping conventions, if it doesn't exist, then it becomes very difficult to analyze data. And a lot of times companies have other priorities, other methodologies that they are engaged in. They have budget issues, and overall, that kind of leads to rely more onto people's experience and just use data as and when it's convenient. It's not really everything they rely on the data alone. So it becomes kind of that culture is another issue, as I said earlier. So I have another question, Terry.
Okay. Please rate the quality and integrity of your SAP data in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. In other words, would you describe your SAP data as very good, good, poor, or very poor? I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. And we'll got the majority of people sharing on that particular one. Very interesting. Nobody rated themselves very good. Nobody rated themselves very poor. 53% said it's good. 47% said it's poor. And I have a feeling those two are pretty, there's a thin line separating those. It would be my feeling.
Actually, this is no different than what we have actually what I've seen in the practical in actual users. There is good data in some parts of the SAP, but sometimes it may not be complete, or it may not be accurate in some instances. So yeah, I think I was just trying to see how are they feeling. And that's really one of the big issue that we feel that in standardization can really help in analyzing the data. So having a good asset hierarchy, and this is just an example. You may define hierarchy with multiple ways. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. It could be depending on your type of industry, the exact function that you all are doing. The hierarchies can help, and the whole idea here is you can actually roll up all these data at different levels of the hierarchy, and that kind of allows you to analyze how many work orders we have, how many failures we had, how much labor hours are we spending on which type of asset category, what are my critical assets, where are we spending the most amount of money in terms of maintenance budget on emergency problems or corrective maintenance. All these can be done if we have a good asset hierarchy and can roll up with an asset hierarchy, just another example. But we can also have, if in some companies it is very important to have a component hierarchy, and if you're really maintaining certain assets, especially more expensive asset and critical assets, it may be advisable to have a good component hierarchy as well. So that will allow you to monitor, where we are having maximum problems. And then, if it's again another thing we noticed is on the PM itself, the PM categories. If we have it at a asset hierarchy level, it will also help you in building relationship between failure and the PM, or it will also give you, when you attach an asset to a particular, in this hierarchy, then you know that that asset can be monitored in many, many ways. So we see these are the simple things, but can really help in analyzing data. There are some other challenges too. If we are using SAP for a long time, then obviously our whole data is big and it grows over a period of time. And the data processing becomes difficult. An SAP is not the data complexity is also there. The application has thousands and thousands of tables. It just becomes hard for average user to understand it. Sometimes technical skills are not available, and the technical skills can be of multitude. There could be database, application knowledge, reporting knowledge, etc. So it becomes hard for us to really leverage all this data. In SAP with BW and all these rest, we get some basic infrastructure, but it's no way it's really designed for comprehensive EAM analysis. So it has some basic things. And it also need to integrate, sometimes it is necessary to integrate the SAP with other systems, other your SCADA systems, maybe your other criticality analysis systems, or any of these PLC systems that where you might gather the meter data or things like that. So which can help you analyze the work orders, the corrective work orders with the actual conditions, etc. And then most of these applications don't have the sophistication in the way the data is visualized or presented. So some of these are, and then of course, as we said, saw it in the poll, the versions upgrade, keeping up with the latest, it's just not easy. So a lot of things change. So these are some of the things we saw as a gap in the information point of view. Most of the time we get some operational reports, but getting a lot more OLAP or analytical reporting is not easy. We get something with BW, but ad hoc reporting is also a little limited. And whatever we get, basic KPIs may not be sufficient to a particular business or a particular company. Depending on whatever their initiatives are, they may like to monitor other things, other metrics, scorecards, etc. And there is no formal performance management, obviously. So this is what we saw as the information. The information needs of different jobs are different, and at an executive level, they would like to see only the big picture, the dashboard. They want the ability to drill down to metrics and go to a detailed report, etc. And we saw a different needs for each of these personas, and it's just not designed for that. So I have another question, Terry. Last question, I promise.
Here we go. What reporting data analysis software do you primarily use for your SAP PM or EAM? Do you use APAB 4, SAP BW, Crystal, BO, or other? We're going to give it, everybody's jumping on here pretty good. We're going to give it 5 more seconds. Interesting. And we'll share those results with you here. 7% are using ABAP 4. 29% are using SAP Business BW, Business Warehouse. 7% Crystal BO. 57%, the largest single block, are saying other.
Okay, so probably Excel or some other.
Yes, Excel. We did a best practice report, and it identified 91% are using Excel in conjunction with.
Right. And that kind of brings the point here that it just most of the time people feel comfortable with Excel because they are familiar with it, and that's what we have seen. But it has its own challenges, and that's the interesting part. So what we wanted to do today was kind of share, how we can. What are our options actually in analyzing this data? SAP has bought, as most of you know, business objects, and business objects before SAP bought Crystal Decisions. So, and there were lot of other products also they bought. So business objects per se has a lot of different technologies in it that can be leveraged. Primarily Excelsius, Crystal, and their traditional BO desktop too. So what we have seen is in the last about 3 to 5 years, there is a lot of changes in how data can be analyzed and visualized. A lot of flash charting, a lot of context-sensitive information mashup ability, where you can see. For example, if I want to do a planning and I want to see my estimated labor hours and how did I do it, but at the same time I also want to see some data from my time and attendance system, which in some companies might be some other system other than SAP, but you want to see that together. Or you also want to see some other oil analysis data along with failure data. So some of those things have become a lot more easier now than what they used to be a few years ago. This whole visualization part has really helped interacting with the data. So for example, you can take a particular report and you can drill it down. All this while you don't have to be connected to the SAP at all. These tools are a lot more capable and a lot more functional in that sense, where whatever we do it in Excel by copying, creating graphs, doing all the rest of it, can be actually automated. It can save a lot of your time on monthly or a weekly basis if you're creating any weekly, monthly, or quarterly reports. And then there are repetitive tasks can be automated. There will always be some ad hoc reporting need, but there is always some of these things that are repetitive can be automated, and most of these tools have become a lot more sophisticated. So the main point here is to understand that there is a lot of options now than what we had a few years ago, and SAP is heavily investing into this to make it a lot more easier. One thing we also noticed is the data model itself is, for an average user, can be extremely difficult to understand. So there is a need to kind of make it easy on the average users or a power user. So there can be some upfront work that can be done that will make it easy for the users to interact with the data. So now let's look at some of the problems that can be solved with data. And obviously, maintenance is all about engineering in many cases. So some are engineering problems, and some are management problems, and some engineering management problems. So we'll just touch on some of these issues. Let's look at asset performance management. If we have thousands and tens of thousands of assets all over the place, how do I find out which are underperforming assets? How do we find the performance? If I make a strategic change, am I getting my failures are going down, or my downtime is reducing? You want to also know what my assets are due for replacement in, let's say, next 3 years or next 24 months, and how do I really make a repair versus replace decisions? Some of these things are done with the experience, and some are done on a gut feeling, some are done on, but what we believe is, those decisions can still be made with the experience, etc., but that can be also supported by some data analysis. A lot of times black and white decisions are easy, and then there are some shades of gray that makes it very difficult for us to decide whether we should repair this particular piece of equipment, or we are better off making or replacing. So some of the companies have run to fail strategies on some of the equipments, which can work, but if you have an expensive equipment and more critical equipment, then you might look at some options how to actually arrive at a certain criteria by which you will decide that at this time, if it meets all these criteria, we will not repair it and we'll just replace it. So some of those strategies can be defined. Let's look at work management. I think most of us are always involved into work management. There is always the where do we focus our work? How much proactive work are we doing versus reactive? And that kind of highlights how the organization is performing. We also like to know what is my work volume, what is my cost involved, what is time, material, all of that. And that kind of gives you, we can actually understand based on the work order types that we have, or by different months, or by, do we have seasonality, we have shutdowns, what do we do before the shutdown, what do we do after the shutdown, during the shutdown, all of that. So some of these things just the sheer amount of work that we have, understanding, getting that big picture, only data can actually solve. Then obviously we all want to know whether are we doing it efficiently. We have a certain type of work, certain type of preventive maintenance code. We do it every time on hundreds of equipment. Do we have a good averages time that it takes? Are we able to ensure that the people who are doing this work are in the same vicinity? If somebody is 95% above that, then or below that, you would like to know why he's able to do it quicker than others, and if there are some people who take more than the average, then you would like to know why are they taking longer. Is there any training issue? Is there any issue related to a particular location? Things like that can be analyzed. Then obviously there are a lot of work orders which are kind of in the problem zone, where work gets started, it's in progress for a long time, some are canceled, so some are reworked. So you would like to monitor those types of work orders at an organization level, at a department level, or however you all are, organized within your company. The other problems, and I'm just giving some examples because there are so many other business problems we can list, but some of these, like in planning and scheduling, if somebody is trying to plan, we just would like to know what my current volume, what is my backlog, what is my forelog. If we are doing a PM look ahead report, you would know what your PMs are. If we are touching our equipment, then might as well finish the PM while we are working on it. So some of those things can be actually analyzed while we are planning and scheduling. Also, whether planners are doing their job well, you can actually monitor their efficiencies, and also figure out whether our planning compliance is in line. So there are so many little things that can be managed, and as a problem, as an organization, most of the time we would like to know where my bottlenecks are, which areas I can improve upon, which areas we have problems that can be addressed if we know it well in advance. So some of these things only data analysis can help. On the reliability side, obviously we can use a lot of failure analysis. We can use a lot of data that will be available for the downtime, etc., and calculate the availability on critical equipment. If we change certain reliability strategies, we want to see how the reliability growth is, and then manage these, understand the risk involved in the failure of critical equipment. And there are some statistical techniques that one can use to actually judge or calculate or compute some of the risk. Failure analysis is another big area where if you want to have failures consistently, if you are monitoring, you can actually identify which failures are taking most of your time in terms of labor hours, in terms of downtime, or which problem codes, or where are we spending money. So you can do a kind of 80-20 analysis, which then you can focus on some of those failures and try to solve them. Then of course we all would like to project the maintenance cost for the quarter, for the year, so that you can actually put it in the budget. So there are some statistical techniques as well as some historic data that you can plot and see how the trend is, and can come up with some budgeting figures. Then there are some unusual failures, and you can actually find out from statistical analysis. And statistics has been used for a long time, as we all use all these drugs which are administered during the clinical trials. They use statistics to make a decision on whether the drug is effective or not. And some of those techniques can also be used in understanding the failures and what the pattern of the failures are, and whether we have any unusual cases. And then, of course, if we are doing any root cause analysis, we can actually figure out what is really the root causes and what the cost of that cause is. So some of those things can be analyzed with the help of data. Again, I have some other examples. What are my impactful failures which are causing, which has a direct impact on the reliability, downtime, etc. Where are we, sometimes we can predict what the next failure will be based on statistical analysis. And that can be augmented with the engineering help because most of the time engineers would know based on their experience, and they can actually, so the statistics can help identify potential risk, and then the engineering group can go and evaluate them whether that has a relevance or not. We can also determine what the mean time between failure is based on various techniques. We can also identify the repeat failures and rework, and that can really help in solving some of the normal problems that we have. There are other areas, but I'll just touch on spare parts because that's most of us have a lot of inventory associated with spare parts, and some is very old, very slow moving, or sometimes non-moving at all for 3 months, 3 years, or 5 years. We don't have anything moving. So you would like to know what that is, and that's really one of the areas that reporting can help you identify. Then there are a lot of spare parts cost, the carrying cost, holding cost, spillage is there. So you would like to know what is how your spare parts are being used. And then, of course, we all want to know what my minimum is, what's my max is, and then reorder levels we want to determine. And that can be tied with the actual reliability goals. And so there are some techniques by which you can actually tie the reliability goals with the spare parts levels. Then obviously the last thing, as an example here, is we can forecast the demand, which can help you identify your budgeting needs as well as your buying or the ordering pattern, which can also give you reordering. You can optimize the order point as well. So let's look at all these things, and I didn't touch some other areas, but just in the interest of time, I'll just summarize some of the things that we discussed. At an organization level, we all have some sort of goals, and these are just sample or examples of goals. We might have other types of goals. So we want to reduce total cost of asset ownership. We want to increase availability, reliability, reduce energy cost, extend assets lifespan. You want to reduce EHS and compliance risk. Maybe labor is an issue from a costing perspective. So there could be different examples, and these are our business objectives, and they have a direct impact on our maintenance and reliability activities. So obviously we all have some strategies in place, or we may devise a certain strategy based on experience, based on certain information that you might have, and that in itself can be provided by a lot of data analysis, and you might come up with some strategy, and you might have already some initiatives in place, RCM, CBM, ISO, etc. And obviously you have a lot of subject matter within maintenance management, and currently you are managing it with SAP. You want to manage asset lifecycle, work management, planning, scheduling, compliance, PM, PDM. So there are so many different subject matter that we actually manage within SAP, and SAP acts here as a transaction system which gathers all these data. We will also have some other related data sources, asset-related data sources. So some engineering information, some meter data. Sometimes some companies have inspection data in another application, or you might have it in the SAP. And then we also have automation data as well that you might like to integrate if it has a relevance to it. And then, of course, SAP ERP also data might be there that you would like to bring it together. So what we believe is all this data, if we have a good quality data, or we have some process in which we ensure the quality of this data, and there is an integrity that you can rely on, and then you can bring it all together. Now, this doesn't have to be a BW, or it can be logically you can bring it, or you can bring it in BW, or you might have some external data warehouse too, or some data repository where you can bring all this data. And it doesn't have to be at one time you have to do. This all can be done in a kind of incremental fashion as well. So depending on what subject matter problem that we all are trying to address, you can actually decide how to get this information together. And once you have all this together, this data, you can actually start using some sort of data modeling. Here, the meaning of data modeling is really defining a problem and how the data can be used to solve that problem. If we have, then you can create some metrics, alerts, or scorecards, or dashboards. So there are different ways the information can be actually shown to different users, or can be provided to different users to. So essentially it's an actionable information that can be readily used. In our earlier survey, a lot of people use Excel or some other sources, and they probably try and do some additional things, and then get to the information that they need. So this can be actually brought all together, and some of it can be automated as well. So the idea here is, once you have all these things together, you can monitor the performance of all your efforts, whatever strategy that you have in place, all the asset-related initiatives that you may have. You can actually monitor the performance. And as classically it is said, what you measure is what you can control, and what you can control is what you can manage. So I think that's a core, part of performance management, and that helps you in coming up with revising your strategy, revising your goals, and all this process continues as a part of continuous process improvement. So this is not a static game. All of this keeps changing as time goes by. As you improve one area, you might take up on another area, and you will repeat this is an iterative process that you might follow. So this is in a nutshell, what we believe that will help you move from, reactive maintenance to proactive maintenance, and then of course we have other techniques for predictive maintenance that can be supported with data analysis. And in the end, really, the goal is to reach to a maintenance optimization. And that's what data can help you with, along with your other initiatives. One important thing here is the data analysis alone cannot do optimization, but data analysis can certainly assist with all your other initiatives that you might have. And that's the whole purpose. And again, just to bring it up together, we all have a lot of data. So we want to bring it together, put it together in such a way that it creates some picture that kind of helps us get an insight into a problem, get some actionable information, and eventually make informed decisions. So that's the goal. So what I'm going to do is show you some examples, and I know we are kind of getting close to the 1 hour here. So I'm going to show some examples that I have, and we will start with very simple example here. Maybe you cannot view, so I'll just make it big. So very simple. I think some of these type of reports you already get, but the point I want to drive here is some of these things presentation-wise was very difficult in previous versions of Crystal or ABAP 4 or BW, etc. So some of these things have been can be presented very well here. As you can see, the same type of work orders, overdue work orders or approved work orders, you would know from a priority standpoint, as well as you want to know from a aging standpoint. So actually, the idea here is to get to a point where you can analyze and you can drill through this. So if I click on this, I can actually go to the a report that will provide me a list of all the work orders that are in that category. And then here, actually, we can click on the work order number and then go to the actual work order too. So some of these interactivity really helps in solving the problems when we are in the meetings or status meetings, or we are talking to a group of people. So if we go another example for costing related or labor hours related. So here is an example where we would like to understand what is my labor cost, what is material cost, what is my tool cost, or if you in some cases have an external service provider, then you can actually monitor for each work order, and you can group some of these work orders based. If you have a project type of work orders, you can actually group it together and then do summaries at different levels. Also, one of the examples here is all of us have work orders, a lot of backlogs. You want to know if you have a culture of scheduling for a week. You want to know how many work orders were scheduled for the period, how many were really completed. Then want to know how many backlog aging is, and really how many work orders were canceled. So some of these KPIs can be done for different set of work order types. So if I have a work order for PM, then I may also like for safety, I would like to know for environment, those types of things. So we have seen some of these KPIs can help you in determining your performance itself. So let's look at another. You want to forecast your PMs. If we are working on a piece of equipment, you would also like to know what we are going to do for the next 3 months, 6 months, etc. And if you have multiple PMs, you may like to group it together, and that's something can be done with the help of a PM forecast or look ahead type of report. And this can be done at an equipment level or a location level. And once you have all these things, you can actually look at it from a summary point of view, where you will get it for PM based on business unit, based on site, depending on how you all are organized. But that's really the idea. And in this particular example, I'm showing you all PDFs, but really you can actually make it a drill through. So from here you can actually go to the list of work orders and then review it further. So there is a lot of interactivity that is available. If we want to post it on the notice board, all these type of weekly schedule or a monthly schedule, we can actually do that. And sometimes you can do a daily schedule. So that kind of gives a sense what is actually planned for that particular period. If we can actually also compare how many are scheduled hours and how many are available hours. So the available hours can come from time and attendance system, and and then can be viewed it in such a way so that planner can do a good job of planning, or a supervisor would know all his people and can group it like that. So the other thing we have seen is people want to do exceptional reporting. They want to know what are my top 10 cost in last 360, which equipment is costing me more in terms of maintenance. And then you can actually focus on that equipment. Here this example is showing all the work orders for that particular centrifugal pump, but you can actually go through a lot more details of that. Again, similar example, these are more based on corrective maintenance that you might have done on a piece of equipment. So you want to know these assets. So some of these ranking methodology helps identify some of the problem areas within the organization. And as you can see, all these things can be linked to the actual work orders, and can be listed further. So some of these techniques can really help get to the uh, equipment that needs your attention from the supervisor or a manager. This is another example of inventory where you want to know the inventory turn, which inventory or which spare parts are turning more. And on the same ground, you will also like to know which is not turned at all. So some of these things can help in identifying slow-moving items. Then there are some regular reports that you might have, so calibration, etc. So the other things, let me also show you some other example which are a little bit on the statistical side, which may not be able to do it with Crystal or BO at this time. There are some other tools that can help you manage some of those reporting. This is an example of a maintenance excellence dashboard, and this may look a little pretty and may look more graphic, but really it has a lot of KPIs on it, and they are grouped from a logical standpoint. And as a manager or as a supervisor, you would like to kind of understand where we are based on your goals. And this, from here, you can actually click and go to the details for each one of these KPIs. So this is really designed. On the left side, we are showing all these asset availability. It is more onto the failures, etc. Whatever I'm showing, really, it is all. A lot of it is feasible within Crystal and any other tool that you might have. So it's really, some of it can be built in Excel also, which can be automated. This is an interesting example, another technique which is used. There is a tool called SAS that can be used to come up with something called heat map. So if I have hundreds of pumps in a particular location and I want to know, I want to monitor based on a particular problem. I want to know operation hours and if there is any relationship with operation hours and total cost or mean time between failures or any other criteria that you might have. So some of these things can be done with the help of heat map. Then we talked earlier about repair versus replace model. How do I decide, at what point I replace an equipment? So there are some techniques that can be followed. These are the areas. Again, there are some outliers if you want to find. If you have a total maintenance cost, if you're monitoring for a particular type of work order or a PM work order, at any point in time it goes beyond that 5% interval, then you can actually go and identify why. In this example, everything seems to be good, but if there was any work order which took more than the average, then you can actually set an alert, etc. So some of these things are feasible. If you have few types of work orders, failure codes, and you have a work order data, we can use Weibull analysis and figure out, how you can extend the life of the asset by eliminating certain types of failures. And this may assist with your engineering group, who can then decide whether they should figure out a way to eliminate those type of failures. Another simple example could be failure data, which can identify failure code and number of failures. And we can do it for downtime or cost or MTBF and identify which failures are really taking most of your time. In this case, 85% of the time, the first two are causing problems. So as a maintenance manager, we can focus on those areas than other areas. So as I said, I have a lot of different examples, but in the interest of time, Terry, I'll just get some questions. So I actually, because I think I had one last slide I would like to share and see, and then go to some of the questions. So how do we get there? So these are the 10 steps. I think it will help companies to get to a data-driven asset reliability and maintenance. And strong leadership, good with a vision and resolve to overcome the practical problems. We always have to start small, establish the business case, prove it that it can be solved, and kind of over the years, over a period of time, build on that and get everybody involved in this process. Along the way, it is always good to build some sort of standardization taxonomy across organization that helps in analyzing data. And then we talked about data analysis in the survey also. We kind of have a mixed feeling here. So over a period of time, we can put certain things in place that can help improve the quality of the data. Then, of course, there is always going to be some sort of investment that has to happen in the analytics infrastructure that can help the shop floor people as well as people in the reliability or higher ups to actually see the value of the data. Then we also think that some of these KPIs, dashboards need to be developed, used, and as you will progress, there will be different initiatives. The dashboard will keep changing, scorecards will change, some of your business problems will change, and they need to evolve over a period of time. You have to probably integrate some of the data from other initiatives that you might have and link it with SAP PM so that you can find some correlationship between the oil analysis, vibration analysis, whether that is reducing your work order failures and corrective maintenance, etc. Then, of course, you have to allocate good budget or certain budget effort. Training is another issue we have seen really can help involve most of the organization in using data. And then ultimately, obviously, that whole thing will lead into building a culture of making data-driven decisions. So we believe these are the steps that can help you start the game. And then it's a long journey, and then you will start seeing the results of it. So Terry, I'll do is take some questions.
Terrific. Sunil, what do you find, in terms of, reality when you're out there as far as data quality from the clients that you're going in? I mean, we hear often, and here there was a 50-50 mix in the poll question, but we hear from the people that we deal with when we really get down to it that their data is not very good and they feel very frozen, that
right.
they want to spend a lot of time going back and trying to fix the data and things of that nature. Can you comment a little bit about what your experience
Sure.
is and what you can do even when the data isn't quite as good as what people might want it to be?
Right. I think that's a great question because that is a problem everybody or most of the organizations are facing because we inherited a lot of data over the years that may not have gathered in a certain fashion that is analysis ready or analysis friendly. So what we think, one of the steps is, and this problem is not something that can be solved with one switch on and off type of situation. It will have to be solved over a period of time. And the best way to start is start with a business problem where you can get maximum benefit as far as organization is concerned. And start cleansing some of the data that, or first of all, start getting good data for the current time onwards so that, you can gather it for 3 months and see analyze it. And as far as past data is concerned, some of the data, there are good data quality tools are available. Some tools are very intelligent. A lot of times we enter a lot of data into text fields, some notes, etc. So now there are a lot of good tools available that can help in cleansing some of that data. But there is no magic wand here that can solve this problem. It needs to be solved over a period of time.
Excellent. Let me see what else we got here. What do you find, in the off-the-shelf reports for SAP? Are you finding those are useful for SAP PM? Do you find that they have a utility when it comes to managing maintenance and decision support?
Yeah, some of it can be used, but a lot of times it really depends on your particular setup, how you are organized, or what is important to you. So some of these off the shelf can be a good starting point, and they can be further modified to suit your particular requirement. And this will all change based on what that business issue that you are trying to monitor or address or trying to solve. So the short answer is yes, you can use some of it, but that may need to be refined or tailored to your need a little bit.
What do you guys do? So somebody says, "Gee, I'm interested. You seem to know, what you're doing when it comes to SAP reporting, and we have an idea of what we want to get out, but we can't get out right now." What's the process like for working with Reporting House?
We generally we start with, as discussed, we start with a business issue that might be that they are trying to solve, the information that they are trying to get. We then define what the information needs are. Once that is done, then we generally use whatever the infrastructure they have in place, whether they are using ABAP or they are using Crystal or whatever the tool might be in place. If they don't have any tool, then we may recommend something that they may need to get. But by and large, once they define the need, what the information that they require, then we can help them build whatever that report that they are looking for. So the process would be ideally to understand the requirement. So we have a lot of library of reports that we kind of give them to help focus on certain business area and define the need, define the requirements, and then kind of help them build the report. So many times SAP gives Crystal or BO as part of SAP in the newer releases. So I think the tools may not be a big problem. So it's all going to be how to actually implement it. So we have a lot of experience, and we have a lot of library of reports that we can reuse or customize it for that particular